If George Toka and his supporters are looking for hope that justice will come to New Orleans, they can take a look at the city of Dallas and what happened to another inmate stuck in the system, Christopher Scott. He had nearly given up hope when he showed his case to a jailhouse lawyer.
And he read it, and he made fun of me one time, and he was like, dude, it's nowhere in the world you're going to get out of prison. You got 1,000,001 chance. I'm like, why you say that? He say, for one, you have no DNA in your case. Somebody has to come back and say that they actually committed this crime before you get released. And I told him, I said, you know what? I'm going to be that 1 out of 1,000,000 to get out of prison for this non-DNA case. I'm laying in bed. I'm trying to figure out my next best move that I can make. And all of a sudden, Craig Watkins elected.
Craig Watkins, the kid from Oak Cliff, will become Dallas County's next district attorney.
As your DA, not only am I responsible for prosecuting those bad guys, but I'm responsible for making sure that if someone innocent comes down to the courthouse, we're not going to be down there trying to put them in jail for a crime they didn't commit.
I was elected in 2006. I was the first African-American DA elected in the whole state of Texas. Being a person of color, obviously, I have issues with law enforcement. It didn't work for me and people that look like me for a long time. And so I wanted to come in and make sure that law enforcement worked for a community that basically distrusted it. The thought process was that a DA was to protect a conviction at all cost. When I came in, I looked at these cases to make sure that if a person was wrongfully convicted, that they got their fair day in court and they would be exonerated. And also, we would actually go and pursue the actual person that committed the crime.
In 2007, Watkins created a special unit to re-examine those cases. He named it the Conviction Integrity Unit, and they started unpacking case files.
The unpacking of the case starts with getting all the documents that we can that are available. Normally that's a transcript of the trial so we can see what happened. Jim would handle a substantial amount of the factual investigation, and then Cynthia will handle the legal side. And then we'll all get together and we pose questions to each other so that we challenge the validity of the conviction.
Within a year, the unit was investigating 400 guilty verdicts, and they cleared 6 men through the use of DNA technology.
On TV, exoneration, exoneration, exoneration. And I'm like, oh, you know, it may be trying to happen for some of us, so I went to back writing letters again to people.
But the real test was clearing someone like Christopher Scott.
Christopher Scott's case is one of the first cases that we actually investigated from the standpoint of eyewitness identification. It was a non-DNA case.
Craig Watkins was putting his career and the credibility of the Conviction Integrity Unit on the line.
If I go with this case based upon this subjective information, eyewitness identification, am I going to ruin the opportunity for us to pursue this program that we have if this individual actually committed the crime and it's found out years later? And so the first thing I did, first time I've ever done this, was I went to go down and talk to him face to face. He was in his, jail uniform, looked him in the eye and asked him. And, I truly believed him when he answered the questions, that he didn't commit the crime.
Scott's next break came when he met a lawyer from the Dallas County Public Defender's Office.
Good. Good to see you.
Nice to see you, too.
Nice.
Thank you.
Michelle Moore was racking up a string of exoneration victories in Dallas.
When I was in prison, I seen Michelle Moore on TV getting guys exonerated. And I was saying, like, if I can get this lady to represent me, I'd probably get exonerated. Like a week later, I get a letter from Dallas County, Craig Watkins' office, saying Michelle Moore was appointed my counsel.
And we talked, and he's like, I didn't do it. I didn't do it. I've said that from the beginning. I kind of lost hope for a little bit and stopped fighting as much, but I didn't do it. I've never told anybody I did it. I am completely innocent, and maintained that the entire time. Even when I lost hope with the system, I maintained my innocence.
The unthinkable was happening in Dallas. Public defenders and prosecutors were working side by side on a wrongful conviction case. Word was spreading throughout the system that Christopher Scott's case was mishandled and another person had gotten away with the crime. Christopher Scott finally caught a break when an inmate serving time for another gun-related crime came forward to identify himself. This was the man police should have been looking for. His name is Alonzo Hardy.
Hardy had written a letter to the courts and said, I did this. I was not the shooter, but I was a good eyes. I'm sick, and, I want to clear my conscience on this.
Next, Hardy gave up the shooter. He was a man named Michael Anderson, a.k.a. D-Mike. You can see how a frightened witness making a cross-racial identification could confuse Claude Simmons with D-Mike. Michelle Moore arranged to meet Alonzo Harding.
He was able to take us through going to buy crack at the house previously, kind of scoping out the house because they had actually seen a lot of money in the house, going back to the house to steal money.
During the trial and during the initial investigation, his name, Alonzo Hardy, and Michael Anderson's names had come up in the investigation, that they were known to be committing these robberies, that they were robbing Mexican drug dealers in the area.
I've got to give a lot of accolades to Jim Hammond, because looking at the scene and going through the ballistic stuff, he's like, well, there's stuff is missing, and then...
They knocked on the door, they opened the door. From what Alonzo Hardy says is that they recognized D-Mike from the previous robbery, and Alonzo Hardy was standing by the door to the left, and the victim shot at him, and the bullet pierced his coat. It didn't strike his body at all, but pierced his coat, and then as he swung the gun toward D-Mike shot him.
Hammond reinvestigated the scene and put the confession and the evidence together. And after 13 years, the first non-DNA exoneration case in Dallas was cracked. Could this mean freedom for Christopher Scott and Claude Simmons?
Al Jazeera